Hey guys, one of the things I find myself talking about a lot with people I'm filming is how best to manage themselves on camera. I know some of these can seem kind of obvious, but I want to talk about 5 of the most important tips that you can follow to make sure you come across as well as possible on screen. You shouldn't need a professional to be with you all the time to be able to make interesting and dynamic content for your website, for your social media channels. So let's start at number 1. One of the first things I tell everyone when I'm working with them on camera is to never forget that when you're making a video, you're speaking directly to one person. It's not like when you're delivering a speech to a large classroom or even a conference room full of hundreds of people. Generally, at the other end of a video will just be one person. So your tone should be as if you're speaking to one person. It is not projecting your voice out there. On camera, that can come across as too oratory, too aggressive. What you're looking for is if someone came into your office or your room and sat down at the desk in front of you and said, "Hi Mary, I know what you're doing is kind of interesting, but I'm not sure I really understand it. Can you just give me the basics of it so I can get an appreciation of it?" It can be kind of strange talking directly to a camera. It's something that takes a bit of practice, but that's what you should always have in your mind. Picture the person. Number 2, it seems obvious and it seems kind of cliched, but be yourself. This is something that whenever I say it to people, they tend to kind of laugh and say, "Oh, you definitely don't want that." But actually you do. The worst thing I see in a lot of online content is people trying to pretend to be someone that they're not. In our modern world, especially because people are so media savvy, authenticity is everything. That's not something you can fake. You can't pretend to be someone you're not. So actually, if you're quite a shy person, that's okay. Be yourself. If you tend to be more comical or jokey, be that too. Do not try and sound the way you think you should sound. The fact is, you are in the position you're in now because you're very good at what you do. Obviously, people communicate with you all the time. Talk to the camera the same way you would talk to normal people. Even if that's a bit quirky, it doesn't matter. It's still part of your personality and it's what makes you interesting. Believe it or not, it actually may be what sets your content out from other people's. 3, when you are talking to the camera, and I cannot emphasize this enough, try and speak conversationally. Whether it's a written script, whether you're coming in with bullet points or you're just speaking off the top of your head, the more conversational, the better. The worst thing you can do is sound too scripted, too prescribed, too monotone. People will instantly switch off. It doesn't matter how complex your information is, you've got to be able to present it in a way that sounds conversational to people. If your particular information has a lot of jargon in it, that doesn't have to be a problem. All you have to do is after you say a word or a phrase, pause for a second and just explain what that is. People will understand, and what they will do is they will appreciate the fact that you are trying to explain to them. You're trying to help them come along with you. One of the worst things you can do in a video is make people feel stupid. As soon as they feel like you are just racing ahead of them or talking down to them, they're gone. When you explain things to them as you go through, you make them feel welcome into your world. You make them understand that you're trying to share information. My whole attitude when it comes to these sort of videos is to, instead of doing the whole I come into a room and I just shout out information and you absorb, is I speak quietly but passionately to the point where you want to lean in and listen. It's the active choice by a viewer to lean in and listen that opens their brain and means they're far more likely to absorb and retain the information you're telling them. Number 4, test your shot. So if you're filming yourself with an iPhone or something that has a flip around screen, or some cameras, great, you can see yourself. If that's the case, still try to make sure you're looking straight down the barrel of the lens and not off to the side or wherever the camera is. I'm sure we've all had Skype conversations with people where they're always looking down into the bottom corner because that's where they're looking at themselves. Doesn't come across well, can seem a little narcissistic. If, like I have here with a DSLR, you can't actually see yourself, then you're going to have to test the shot. Yes, it's a bit of a pain. Set your camera up wherever it is. Mine's on a tripod. You might be just putting yours on a desk or something, but you're going to have to record a couple of seconds, go back behind the camera, have a look, see how it is, make changes, whether that's moving the camera or moving yourself, maybe moving something in the background. This is going to take 5 or 6 checks, but trust me, it's worth it. Personally, I prefer talking directly to the camera if you're trying to communicate an idea, because you're talking straight to someone. Make sure you're decently framed and that there's nothing too distracting in the background. And number 5 is, and you'll see this on every checklist out there, it's sound. Sound is so important. In fact, I would argue it's more important than good picture. If the sound is bad on a video, people just aren't going to watch. You know yourself, that loud background hiss, that It would drive you nuts, particularly if you're watching on a phone where the speakers don't tend to be that loud, or if they're headphones in your ear, they're going to drive you insane. Here I'm using a radio mic, which you can see there. Little guy just clips on. These are great for getting really strong audio, but they do cost a couple of €100, and so you may not be willing to make that investment yet. You've got two other options. You can either use an external mic attached to a camera. Let me actually just unplug it and show you what that looks like. So that's this guy here. It's a Rode external mic. And this is me talking directly to the Rode mic. It still sounds really good, but there's a bit more sound of the room in it. Some people prefer it, some people prefer the radio mic thing. It's really up to you. You'll see different versions of these. You can get ones for iPhones and iPads as well, but the same kind of idea. And the other option you have is using the onboard mic on your camera. This is what I sound like when I'm just using the onboard microphone on the Sony camera that I'm using here. Can you see how strong the difference is between that and this? Do a test run, listen back, think, does it sound good enough to me? If you're stuck with the onboard mic, particularly on a phone, I would say do everything you can to make sure you're in the quietest place possible. It's just going to make your video sound so much better. The reality is, if you get bad sound the first time around, there's not a huge amount more you can do afterwards. You can always try and fix it, but it will be always kind of muddy. It's like lipstick on a pig. Okay guys, I hope they were a little bit of help. Those top 5 things, if you can do them, you can make genuinely engaging content that you should be able to throw up online and get a great response from. Talk to you soon.